computer. Okay. So we officially started. How you doing, guys? How's everybody?
Good, good.
Today, good, good. Today, the idea is that we're just going to go over a couple of the two-post lifts and a couple of the four-post lifts so that everybody is kind of on the same page. You know, is kind of understanding the material and is understanding the lifts in the same way. So that's going to be the most important part. Um, Offhand, does anybody have questions about the two-post lift, four-post lifts, anything like that? Or is everybody kind of well-rounded with them?
I consider myself well-rounded with them at this point
Okay,
in
Um,
the game.
Dan?
Good afternoon, guys. I apologize for the delay. In regards to the two post lifts, I do have a question.
Okay,
It's not very clear to me the symmetric and asymmetric part,
okay,
and also there are some posts that have the little bar on the top, and there are some that don't.
okay.
Love to understand that part a little bit more.
That's perfect. We are going to cover those very quickly. The symmetric and the asymmetric are basically meant to accommodate different cars, different size cars. And the floor plate and the clear floor are usually meant for the ceiling height. But that is actually part of the things that we're going to go through. I know that Roger and George have gone through some of this training, so it's just going to be a rerun. But we're going to go in a little bit more into detail in regards to the lift. So first, we're going to just start looking at the two-post lifts that we sell. Um, as far as the brands are, we have AMGO, which is a pretty new lift. They're out of South Carolina. My experience with them up to this point is that it's a good company, but they tend to be a little bit behind on some of the equipment availability. So I don't know if that's a common thing or if that's something that is always going to happen. It's yet to be known. Benpack, I think everybody knows that company. Challenger, the two best-selling lifts that we offer is the Benpack and the Challenger lifts. Hoffman has one lift in there, but Hoffman is mostly related to tire and alignments. So Hoffman doesn't necessarily have a lot of two-post lifts. Ideal, which is kind of like the Ideal, the JMC lifts, and the Launch Tech, along with the Tuxedo, are actually the same company. So as you guys had the training with Ron, you pretty much got the idea of which one and why those lifts were available. Um, Looking at Maha again, it's an American company. Uh, Not too popular. We haven't sold too many of them, but at the same time, they have a pretty good American steel lifts and American manufacturing. Newsbomb, I believe, is one of the better lifts in the industry. Although my experience with them is that we haven't had a great communication with them, and it's something that I would like to build on because Newsbomb as a company makes really good lifts, which are American manufactured with German engineering. PKS lifts, basically the PKS lifts are lifts that are made in Canada, so they're North American. The PKS lifts are usually related to heavy duty lifts. They usually are between 15,000 pounds and up. Very unlikely that they would have a 9 or a 10,000 pound. And quality lifts, we went over that with the Challenger. Quality lifts is an extension of the Challenger lifts. And then it's just the more economical version of the actual Challenger lifts.
we
Okay.
sold any of those, Ed, recently? No,
Recently, I can't say that we have,
that's
but I know
relatively
that
new.
there are a lot of quotes out there. We just recently got it on the webpage, so
Yeah.
it's not something that we've been able to sell very much of. Okay. Any questions in regards to the manufacturers that we offer two-post lifts for?
So the most popular ones are the Bampack ones, right?
I
Then
would
it's the JMC.
say, right, I
Like,
would say that the three most popular lifts that we sell are the bent pack. Well, actually, I'm going to go with four, to be honest. It's going to be the bent pack, the Challenger, then we're going to go to Tuxedo,
And,
and then
and
Titan.
JMC. And JMC
Well, Tuxedo, JMC, Launch Tech, and Ideal are the
is
same
the
company,
same.
so it just kind of it's just one big blanket for them, So it covers a lot of lifts. We actually, in terms of sales, we usually sell over $100,000 worth of equipment with them on a yearly basis, more than that. So I mean, the more we sell Tuxedo, the better benefits we get. And in fact, the same is true for Benpack and the same is true for Challenger. So as a JMC sales rep or as a JMC employee, we try to push mostly the Tuxedo, the Benpack, and the Challenger because there are benefits for us in selling those lifts that the more that we sell, the better profits we're going to get towards the end of the year and towards the future. Okay? Any other questions?
Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So go. Oh, go ahead.
From, for example, if a client calls and he says that he wants a really good quality lift, from which brand is the first brand that should pop up in my head?
Well, whenever we're talking about a good lift, we have to keep in mind that all the lifts that we sell are good lifts. Okay, we don't really sell bad lifts. We sell different quality lifts. So the JMC Tuxedo, the Titan lifts, and the AMGO lifts are considered more on the lower end scale, right? These lifts, not only are they not usually ALI certified, which we will cover in a moment, the certification that is offered by an institute to certify the lifts. These lifts that we just discussed, the JMC, for example, I'm pointing at one right now here, which is the Tuxedo also. AMGO is another one. Titan is another lift. Launch Tech is another company with Tuxedo, right?
Mm-hmm.
So these lifts usually do not have an ALI certification. So they're considered more like the hobby lifts, right?
What do you mean?
Hobby is
Like,
basically for customers who don't have a business and they want to buy the lifts for their home, or they have a small garage and they want to buy a lift for their small garage. Maybe they only see 5 or 10 cars a day compared to a larger location that can have 20 to 50 cars a day. You see?
okay.
So these are lesser quality because of the steel. They're made from overseas. Um, as we had discussed in the previous trainings of these two post lifts. Okay. Now, because I like to sell JMC lifts or the Tuxedo lifts because we get a higher profit, and because there are more availabilities within the states. You guys obviously know we have the inventory sheet where we can find those lifts in different parts of the country, so it's easier to ship, right?
Okay.
So is that question clear?
My end.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Going into Dan's conversation, the symmetrical and the asymmetrical. Okay. Well, ideally, the symmetrical lifts in general are best suited for long and heavy vehicles like trucks, vans, and SUVs. Okay. What does that mean? That means that the posts are going to be facing each other at exactly 90 degrees. So for example, you can see here, the way that these posts, this is like a drawing, these posts are facing each other directly. You see? Whereas the asymmetric lifts, with uneven length lift arms, asymmetric lifts require you to position the car, truck, van, or SUV with approximately 30% of the length past the post and 70% past the rear. So what is the idea behind them? the asymmetric lifts, if you notice, the lifts are at a 45-degree angle. So this is at a 45-degree angle. These are symmetrical, right? Now, what's the main point? The main point is the center of gravity. If you have a longer vehicle, the longer vehicle is going to have a different center of gravity than a smaller vehicle is, right? Now, also, the longer vehicles typically are going to be front heavy. That's why the center of gravity is different. So it's able, the arms are positioned in a way where it's easier to fit a larger vehicle or a front heavy vehicle in one of these lifts. The idea is that if you look at where the door is, technically it would be a little bit in front of the lift, where the lift, where the door meets the lift, and then you can open the door and you still have a decent amount of space. What happens if you put a small vehicle in front in a symmetric lift? Well, then the center of gravity is going to be back more, and what's going to happen is that you're going to end up hitting the door on the post. Okay? Vice versa. What happens if you put a big vehicle on an asymmetric lift, right? Well, chances are that the center of gravity is going to be off, and you're going to have to either adjust the position of the car, or you're going to have to open the door and be a little bit more uncomfortable. Okay? To be very clear, can you put a big vehicle on an asymmetric lift, or can you put a small vehicle on a symmetric lift? Yes, both vehicles can be used on either lift. The main difference now is the comfort level. Some people work more with bigger vehicles, so it's easier for them in that way. Okay? Going into the symmetrical and the asymmetrical lifts, we have lifts that are considered V-symmetrical, bisymmetrical, or what's the other word? I'm sorry, I forgot what.
Versymmetrical?
Versymmetrical. There's bisymmetrical, and some company use
That's Challenger
Penpack.
though, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But in reality, the V-symmetrical, the bisymmetrical, and the true symmetrical, which is with Penpack, are the same idea behind the technology. So what they do is that they combine both the symmetrical and the asymmetrical arms, and they put it on the lift. Now, what's the idea? Is that whenever you look at the arms, you can see these arms kind of have like a U-shaped, kind of like a position here.
Yes.
So the idea is that you can actually use those arms both in an asymmetrical or a V-symmetrical configuration, right? If we look at, for example, the Challenger, let me look it up here. The LE10 is one of the more popular ones that I like to sell because of that same reason. This lift is considered both symmetrical and V-symmetrical. And in fact, Challenger was the creator of that technology. So they kind of take credit for how that lift is set up. As you can see, these arms, which isn't the greatest picture, but what happens is that you can actually swing this arm back here so that you're able to get the vehicle. These arms will swing from the back to the front so that you don't have to hit the wheel over here or over here. Is that clear?
Yep.
No, I'm sorry. I gotta be honest. That part I lost you there.
Okay, I'll show you a better picture then. So the way that the arms swing are, both the arms will swing into the same position so that they are able to swing back. Okay, so let's JMC 11 lift is another very popular lift, and as you can see, the Tuxedo JMC lift has the same kind of arm in the front, which is kind of bent, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you see the different positions of the arm, you could have this all the way here, or you could swing it all the way to the back so that both of them are perpendicular, right? That means that when you enter the vehicle here, you can swing this arm, instead of swinging it from out to in, you're swinging it from in to out.
Okay.
So that is going to give you the idea behind the symmetric, asymmetric capabilities, so that you don't have to position the car either forward or backwards to make the arms fit properly. Is that clear?
Yeah, it's like at an angle.
It's at an angle, correct. Yes. One of the lifts, another version of that same asymmetrical V-symmetrical style, are going to be considered with the Bentpack XPR10. Now, they're similar, but different. And I will show you why in just a moment. They usually have, well, the idea is that they have an arm which is shorter and it can extend out further, or it can extend out really short, so that it's able to do the same thing. Now, unfortunately, I didn't prepare that one, so I can't remember exactly which one it is that does that. But once you get a look at the, once you look at the true symmetric on the Bentpack one, you're basically looking at the V-symmetric or the asymmetric. That's the idea behind it. Okay, so I'll find that in just a moment and send you guys a picture so that we can continue on. All right.
Nice.
Cool.
Cool. Any questions so far in regards to the symmetric, asymmetric?
It's very important to know, like, what type of vehicle is the client using. So,
Well, yes and no, Steph, because I don't necessarily only go by that. But sometimes what I try to do is I try to upsell them to the V-symmetric, especially when they are a garage. That's one of the advantages that a garage can have, is that they can do both small and big vehicles. If I have a customer who's basically calling me for a hobby lift, for a lift inside his garage, then it's not the most important thing. You know, if he has a small car, I'll give him an asymmetric lift. If he has a big car, he'll have a symmetric lift. And most of the time, they know what they're looking for. So I don't always get too picky with the information, if you know what I mean. Because at
okay.
the same time, you can confuse the customer. But if the customer asks you, it's important to know.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, there's the picture I was looking for. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, there you go. You see? So basically, the true symmetric design has the same style of arms. They're shorter and they're able to extend further so that you can get both larger vehicles and smaller vehicles on there. Okay? The only, just to add something more, the only time that this V-symmetric kind of configuration becomes an issue is if the customer has a car with a very wide wheelbase. The wheelbase, if you don't know, is the base of the vehicle from one tire to the other. Okay, so we're going to go over some of those dimensions. So from time to time, you may need to ask the customer, especially if he has like a dually truck, if that would bother him. But like I said, not to get too involved, you give the customer the information, let him analyze it, let him know that the information is there. This way he can decide for himself if the vehicle will work for him. Okay. Now, we're going to go over very quickly what is an ALI certified lift. All right. If you remember on this conversation that I had, there was a JMC lift, Tuxedo lifts, Titan lifts, AMGO lifts. These lifts are not ALI certified, right? The Bentpack lifts, the Challenger lifts, the news bomb lifts, the PKS lifts. These
Launch
lifts
tech.
are right. Launch Tech. Well, only some of them, Stephanie, are
Mm,
certified. Okay. So what is an ALI certified? It's an automobile lift institute. And what they do is they test the lift to guarantee that the lift is actually capable of lifting the weight that it says it can lift. Okay. So for example, this is a 9,000 pound lift. It has not been tested. It is rated for 9,000 pounds, but there is no guarantee that if the customer puts 9,000 pounds on this vehicle, how it's going to respond. Most of the time, it's going to do just fine. On some occasions, it can fail. And especially when we're talking about an older used lift that has been worn and has been used a lot. So that's why an ALI certified lift is popular, especially among uh, people who have big garages and people who work with insurance companies. Big garages typically need insurance and need equipment that is insured so that they can continue to keep the insurance and the backup that they have, right? So basically, the ALI certification is a sticker that says this lift has been tested to be able to lift the amount that it has. So if you ever have a doubt, usually right on the description within the lift, it should tell you if it is certified or if it's not certified. If you have a doubt, feel free to go to the ALI certified director of certified lifts, right? And then, for example, just fill it in. So, for example, I'm going to look for a two-pole surface mounted from Challenger Lifts. The brand is going to be let's take a look here.
challenge, right?
Challenger Lifts, thank you. And the model is called the LE10. Let's go ahead and search for that. And this way we will know if that Challenger LE10 is in fact certified or not. And it's, as it shows here, not only is the LE10 certified, but the older model VLE10 is also certified, or the newer model, excuse me. Okay, so is that clear? You can always
Yeah.
go to the ALI certified to double check just in case. Stephanie, if we are talking in regards to the Launch Tech, Launch Tech does have a couple of lifts that are ALI certified, but they are only in the 11,000 pound range.
Yeah. I
So
remember that. Mhm.
the 9,000 pound is not. So as you can see here, this 10,000 pound range is ALI certified. This 11,000 pound lift is ALI certified. This 9,000 are not. Okay,
Okay.
guys, are we okay with this? Everybody good?
Yep.
Even the old reps, the ones who already went through this training, is this key, refreshing you guys? Roger, George.
Hello.
Okay.
Yes, yes. I had to
Oh,
click on the mute.
I was like,
Yes.
I could imagine
I
George
was
just
like,
talking
I was
away, like
saying
I
yes.
said yes.
I was saying yes, yes. Wait, I was in mute. Okay, yes.
Okay. So moving on, we're looking at the chain over. So we're going to basically talk about the way that a two-post lift functions. Okay, so there's going to be three main designs, which are going to be the chain over, which, as the name says, is for the chains. The next one is going to be a direct drive, and the last one would be with the equalization cables. Okay. Very rarely do you have a customer who is set on having exactly one or the other. Most of the time, they just want a lift that can lift a car, and that's it, right? Other times, you will get a customer, and I know that there has been a couple of calls in regards to the four-post lift that have to be chain over because usually the chain over is one of the older style models that people tend to trust more just because of its antiquity. Um, so basically, as the name says, it's a large heavy duty chain that goes over a guide on the top of the cylinder, right? What's an advantage of the chain over design? The chain over design is rugged. It lasts, right? It's unlikely that that chain is going to break. So you will not likely have to change a lot of parts. What are the disadvantages? Once the chain gets older and it gets used, it's going to be like a chain on a bicycle or a motorcycle or what have you. They get stretched out, and then you will have to actually do a lot of labor to change out that chain along with a lot of other moving parts. So it becomes a lot more expensive and a lot harder to maintenance this style of lift. Okay? Is everybody clear on what is a chain over design?
Yes.
Okay. Next we have is a direct drive design. The direct drive design is basically the newer technology that has come out and is more of the popular model that people like. In fact, going back to the JMC 11, one of the reasons that lift is so popular is because, in fact, not only does it have the direct drive, but it also has the bisometric system. So it's a very economical lift that has a lot of technology. Okay. For example, the LE10 does not have a direct drive system. But anyway, what is a direct drive? Well, the direct drive is basically a cylinder. It's pressurized hydraulic fluid that is pumped through a piston. Okay. So it doesn't have a chain. And yes, it has equalizing cables, but the main force, the main power that's doing it as opposed to a chain is going to be a cylinder that goes up hydraulically. Okay. So what's the advantage? The advantage is that the car, whenever you have a vehicle on the lift, if you've ever been to a garage, you may see sometimes where when the lift starts to raise the vehicle, it's going to shake, right? This direct drive basically eliminates that because it's a lot more powerful. The shaking is because the lift is straining to lift the vehicle up. So you're going to start seeing the arms and the car itself shake, that this happens. Okay. What's the disadvantage? If this thing breaks, it's a pain, right? So I don't know if it's been in the market long enough to see that it is a direct drive. If it's durable, I expected that it is. Okay. Another lift that is direct drive are the XPR10 models. I believe it's I believe it's all of them. Let me double check. So it's always important that when you go into a lift, don't forget to scroll down just to make sure that you are reading these descriptions. And now that you understand them a little bit better, you're able to use them as strong selling points in the sale. Direct drive performance, true metric arms. So there you have two advantages, and the customer says, oh my God, why is this lift so expensive? Well, sir, it's ALI certified, it has direct drive, and you have true metric arms. So it's going to be a very good, reliable lift that you're going to have in your garage, right? Now you can actually give them the reason behind as to why the lift is so good. Okay, so does anybody understand oh, hold on. Where did I put the page? I apologize, guys. Okay, so direct drive. Then we're going to move into the equalization cables. So the equalization cables are very heavy duty cables that do the same thing as the chain. Okay. These cables are usually rated at a very high PSI. They're like 14,000, right? So usually, if you have a cable that is in a lift, it's not rated for 9 or 10,000 pounds. It's rated for a lot more. And they're also known to go on 2-post lifts, 4-post lifts, scissor lifts. So these equalization cables are a little bit uh, more popular also, especially in the new material, in the new equipment. One of the ones that I know has the equalization cables, for example, are the Challenger. Um, Another one are most of the 4-post lifts nowadays. Almost all 4-post lifts that are either storage or service typically have equalization cables. So see if I can find where that picture is. And I guess you can see here as I kind of hover over the picture, you're going to see that there is a cable that is hooked onto the bottom. And as you go up, that's basically the idea behind the cable. Typically, there are 2 cables, one for each post, and then they align with the top. Okay, so that basically covers the different style of lifts, which are the way that they are lifted. Okay, so does anybody have any questions in regards to what is the direct drive, chain over, or the equalizers?
That
I do.
change.
I'm
I'm sorry.
sorry, Steph.
Oh, that change over design there, it's hard, for example, as you said, if the change gets oxid or, ¿cómo se dice oxidada?
Rusty.
Rusty.
Mhm.
Que Oxid, yo me había inventado la palabra. Okay,
That's
if the
something else
change,
there. So
if the change get rusty, it's difficult for the manufacturer to get a new one, or is that
Well,
something?
I mean, it depends on the manufacturer. I would say that, for example, a manufacturer such as Tuxedo, I've had very good responses from them whenever it is that we're looking to get parts from a Tuxedo lift. Okay. So I guess that all depends on the manufacturer if they're able to get replacement parts on the lift or not. Um, but to be completely honest with you, Stephanie, I've never had a call for somebody who is looking to replace the chain because they
Okay.
either, I think the chain from time is so durable that it sometimes outlives the lift. That's just an opinion. I just don't know.
I
But
think they keep it oiled too, so that helps.
yeah, yeah, obviously. So I mean, I think that even then, if it does get rusty, if that's the exact case, I think there's like a process that you can do to unrust them, if that's even a word. But okay.
Okay.
I have a question.
Hmm.
Which or what are the lifting cables in this? I mean, not in this chain over, but on the one that you were showing us before. The lifting cable have to be with the equalization cables, or on the scroll up a little bit. Oh, on that one you said that they're also cables on the
Yes.
direct drive designs. So
So,
lifting cable, what refers to?
well, the main force that lifts the direct drive is this rod in the middle, right? That's the piston. And there is going to be like a motor that this piston goes to that is either going to push it up or is going to push it down. So the main force, the main thing lifting this thing up is going to be the piston here, the hydraulic piston. Whereas the equalization cables, the main force is the actual lifting cables. Now, there is a hydraulic motor behind it that is working, but the cables themselves are the ones that are actually doing the pulling. I'll give you a picture. Ben Pack. So for example, I think this is one that shows pictures of the cables. Remember,
There's
these
an
equalization,
also. Oh my God.
remember that the equalization cables are not only popular for two-post lifts, but they're also popular for four-post lifts and scissor lifts as well. Okay, so this is apparently when I'm on Zoom, everything is so much slower. As you can see in this picture, underneath it, you have these types of wires that are basically pulling the lift up or pulling the lift down. So these are considered equalization cables. This is going to be the main pulling force. Does that answer your question, Nika?
Nika.
Okay, I'm going to assume yes. Okay. Dan, did you have a question?
Yes, in comparison between the equalization cables and the chain over, I mean, wouldn't that be the same type of maintenance issue? Like if you want to, replace the cables, that's going to be a whole hassle if you need, and also expensive if you need to do the maintenance to these things.
Honestly, I've sold probably at least 10 replacement cables for lifts, and they usually don't cost more than $100. And it's a lot easier to just run a cable from one end to another and get that bolted down as opposed to changing out the entire section of a chain.
Oh, okay.
Hmm.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep.
I have a question.
Yep.
So, prior, for example, we're offering uh, the type of lift to the client. What's the time frame that they're going to be coming, rusty? The time frame, like years, like really long time. And those cables that you actually send to clients, those were actually really older lifts, like probably 10 or 20 years, maybe.
Okay. In regards to changing out the chains, not the only reason they get changed out is if they get either broken or stretched out, right? I've never had a call in regards to a rusty chain or whatever, but the life of a chain can depend highly on the way that the vehicle, excuse me, the way that the lift was taken care of. Okay, so if the customer had a 9,000 pound car and he had a 9,000 pound lift and he was consistently using his lift on a chain over design, chances are that that lift is going to get worn out before if he had an 11,000 pound lift. So it all depends on how you take care of the lift, right? How you maintenance it. These chains have to be consistently greased up. Okay. So that's the one. With the equalization cables, um, sometimes they break just because they're installed wrong, right? Sometimes they just create more pressure than what it is. So it's not necessarily because the lift is old, but sometimes it has to do with the way that they position the cables. It could be due to maybe at some point one part of the car was heavier than the other. So there's no real reason why they would break. It could be a variety of reasons. But does that answer your question, George?
Yes, yes, it
Okay.
does.
Okay. So we covered there. Any other questions in regards to the style between direct drive, chain over, and equalizing cables?
I'm good on my end.
Good
All
on
right,
my end
awesome.
too.
Next, we're going to look at what is the single point and dual point lock release system. Okay. I remember in the conversation with Ron when he was talking about the lock and release systems, he basically explained this. So I'll just cover this very quickly so that you guys have an idea again. Dual point release systems and single point release systems are very easily understood in the way that we know that when the lift goes up, there are locks that sit into the frame so that the, the car just doesn't come sliding back down. So once the car goes up every 4 inches or so, there's going to be like a big metal clip that just kind of falls into place. This is done so that the car doesn't slide down. What happens? Once you get to the top, usually you have to drop the car down by about a half an inch or an inch or so that the clips inside of the posts here lock in, right? They're called safety mechanisms. Um, what happens when you want to take the car down? Well, you have to release the clips, right? So with a majority of the lifts, and especially the cheaper version ones, they have a dual point release system. Okay, that means that you have to go to one side, unlock it, usually with a cable such as this. Then you have to go to the other side and unlock it before you can then drop the car on the lift to the floor. Okay, that's a dual point. The single point is basically that there's a lever that has a wire connected to both of the clips. So when you pull on that lever, both clips basically disengage and you're able to drop the vehicle. Okay? Why would they exist? Well, I mean, if you're in a garage and your idea is that you want to be time efficient, chances are that running back and forth from one side of the lift to the other takes up time. Does it take a lot of time? No, but the idea is that for every process that you do, you take a little bit less time, and therefore more vehicles and less, and the mechanic himself will be less tired for the next day. Okay, imagine 5 years of running back and forth. That takes a long time. Is this part more or less understood? It's pretty easy, but just in case you have any questions, please let me know.
What's like the most common
It's
question
okay.
you get for that?
I'm sorry?
What's the most common question that you normally get, like based on those lock release? Like,
Mm, it's not so much the questions, but again, it turns into the selling point.
gotcha.
So for example, HD 4P. Nope, that's a 2P. Sorry. The Titan Premier Series are lifts that are considered um, single point release systems, right? If I have a customer that is kind of like, I kind of like this one, but there's a cheaper one somewhere else. Yeah. So one of the reasons why you tell him, hey, this lift is better because of that. Okay. It has reinforced carriages. It's a one-piece column design. These are asymmetric arms, and it has, I don't know where is the single point release. Oh, there it is. It was the first thing. The single point release system. Why? What's that? Oh, well, and then you get to explain to the customer, oh, you don't have to run back and forth all the time. You see what I mean? And now
Right.
that gives a customer like, oh, wow, this has more technology. So at that point, you're able to justify why the customer should pay either $100 or $200 more for a lift that he's saying he found cheaper somewhere else. Okay.
Makes sense. Makes
Okay.
sense.
So again, it's not so much the questions because very few people actually have asked me in regards to that question. It's more of the selling point. All right.
Okay.
Questions
Sounds
anywhere?
good. Nope.
We're good? Okay. Now what I'd like to do is I'd like to go over some of the measurements of this, and I think Andy will appreciate this greatly. Um, I know that in the middle of a call, guys, these guys start asking you in regards to dimension, and you see all these numbers, and you just want to, you want to shoot yourself in the head. How am I supposed to read everything? Well, the idea is that you ultimately understand them, before you get into the call, and then this way, when you get a customer who's asking you in regards to dimensions, then you can answer a lot easier. With the BenPack actually has a really good system where they lay it out almost exactly. Like, this is the exact dimensions that you have. Not all companies do this, so try to get the idea behind this one first, and then this way you're able to communicate that information when it comes to other lifts. Okay?
All right.
Okay, so for example, the first one. Here we're looking at an XPR10. Most of the time, these lifts are located right in all this information is located right on the page. So you'll be able to find that. Lifting capacity, 10,000 pounds. Let's check out the rise on this. A, which is basically, as what this says, from the top of the pad to the top of the pad fully lifted is 69 inches, right? How do we find out what 69 inches? Because most Americans that you spoke with don't really work with that. They usually work in feet. So you take the 69, you divide it by 12, you tell that customer, hey, that lift goes up 5 feet, 7.5 inches. Okay, that's the way that most people measure in the United States, is by feet, then inches. If you tell them, sometimes you get lifts that are in centimeters or millimeters or whatever the case is, you would have to do the conversion with a calculator, or you just find a page that can do the conversion for you. Okay. Now you got the max. Oh, actually, look, I just got it confused. So the rise from the floor to the bottom of the post are 69 inches, whereas you have rise plus pad, which is actually B, from the floor to the pad is 73 inches. So as you can see, 69 inches where you will bump your head, 73 inches where the car is going to sit on the pad, and then the max lifting height is 79 inches, and the pad is 4 inches. Did you follow me there? So each one, A, B, and C, are in essence the same rise, but they're going to be different measurements due to whether it's on the bottom, it's on there, or it's fully raised. Is that part clear?
Yeah, I got it.
Yep. Okay. Height overall. Height overall typically talks about the posts, right? Now, E, as you can see here in this picture here, we are looking at from the floor to the top of the post are 145. I know Roger recently had a situation where he ended up selling a lift that was actually taller than the ceiling. Um, not always, not always the agent's fault, maybe not the customer's fault, but at the end of the day, it becomes our problem. So, whosever fault it was, we got to make sure that we express that information so that the customer understands, hey, do you have 145 inches worth of clearance? What does that mean? Do you have 12 feet, almost 1 inch of clearance? He's like, no, I have 11.9. I'm like, well, this is not going to work for you. So we got to be careful about that to make sure that the height overall is expressed in the conversation. Um, there are occasions where the lifts, for example, oh, actually, this might be one of them. Hold on. There are some lifts, and especially with Titan, that the height, the overall height, and the overall height when it's fully raised are two different things. Now, why does that happen? Is because when the lift goes all the way up, there's actually a part that comes out up above the post. So unfortunately, I can't remember exactly which lift it is, but always double check the information, especially when it comes to Titan. I know that they have a lift somewhere around there that does that. Okay.
Okay, sounds good.
Let's take a look here. Width overall, we have the F. The F is going to be from corner to corner. Usually, the width overall is going to include the power unit that's on the side. Some companies include that, some companies don't. So from time to time, you're going to have to double check what is the width overall and if there's a difference between the width overall and the power unit, just in case the customer has a tight spot. Okay. G would be the outside columns. So as you can see here, there's going to be a difference between what the width overall is to just the columns. In this case, it's 133.25. Okay. The inside columns, which is going to be H. So that's going to be from this point to this point, typically because as the car drives in, we need to know that the mirrors and the overall width of the vehicle is going to fit, right? Sometimes you get cars that have special frame, a special, like a special hood. So we got to make sure, hey, do you have at least 106.25? Then it'll cover. This one has different configurations because you can they have a short configuration and a wide configuration when it comes to the installation. That's the difference there. Then we have the drive-through, okay? Drive-through and the inside columns are not the same thing because from H, it's corner to post to corner to post. When we're talking about the drive-through, it's really where the wheels are going to be able to drive through there. Okay, so there is going to be a difference just to make sure that the inside columns are more for the chassis of the vehicle, and the drive-through clearance are going to be based more on the wheels. Okay. Anybody have questions so far up to this point?
That's where I get a little hung up on is the, kind of explaining, if a guy says, hey, could I fit, this kind of vehicle? This is mainly for like the 4-post. I know we're going to get there in a bit, but kind of get a little bit confused with the drive-through clearance and then like the overall height and all that stuff.
Yep. So the floor to the top switch, J, okay, this is going to be the overall height up to where the top of the vehicle is going to be able to lift. All right.
But not all the other lifts have that specification. That's what I'm saying. Sometimes it gets confusing because there's lack of detail when it comes to specifications on certain items.
Yes, you're absolutely right about that. But usually, if you learn this well enough to basically understand the differences, because I mean, there's a very subtle difference here between this rise, and this rise. But in fact, between this rise and this rise, there's actually a whole 10 inches. You see?
Right.
So that's why, as we assume, if we are forced to come to the conclusion that we are so tight, the customer saying, I have exactly this amount, then that's time to double check with the manufacturer. Hey, the customer has exactly this much, and I am confused with your description as to what is the exact amount. Um, I've gotten to the point where I'm able to read these descriptions and read these specifications to the point where I understand them. But for the newer people, sometimes it is better to just double check that information.
For sure, for sure.
Okay. Um, so we were at
I
drive-through clearance.
can
Yes, George.
can yeah, question. Can you also compare? I mean, this we have this great information, measurements everywhere for this specification lift. And for example, when I'm working with the EQ10 quality lift, there's not a lot. So the like I wouldn't have like all the specifications that Benpack has, as as what he was talking about.
Yes, and my answer to that was related to making sure that by looking at all this additional information, you're able to look at the shorter version of the information to try to understand what it is that they're talking about. Um, the quality lifts, JMC lifts, Titan lifts, they're never going to be as exact as the Benpack lifts in their information. But if you can look at this information and basically understand what they're trying to tell you between the differences, and you look over at another company and then you're saying, hey, well, I kind of understand it now, so let's actually take that time to just go over something really quick and see if we can start to understand it, right? um,
Got
Here
it.
it's telling me that the width is 137.80, right? So does that tell me that it is an overall width? Well,
Yep.
I'm going to have to assume that it is. But if the customer tells me, well, is that width actually the width of the overall, or is that the width of um, my drive-through? And here I can then say, no, sir, your actual drive-through are 103.98, whereas you can fit your chassis with between the columns at 113.62. You see? So again, the point is, by looking at this general information compared to this detailed information, you're able to create the question in your head as to which one it can be and which one it is. Going back to the overall rise height, lifting height, now I can see here that it says 4.65 to 72.84. Okay, I'm going to have to assume that the 4.65 is the smallest lifting that is possible. So I am going to assume here that this lifting height and this max lifting height is going to be to the top of the actual pad, which what they would say is probably in this case B, right? Now, again, comparing, if I have 4.65, that means that that's how high the pad is from the floor to the top of the pad. Do you see how I'm trying to compare those?
Yes, right, entirely.
Okay.
And can we compare to the EQ10?
Sure. Give me a second. Now the EQ10 has, oh, no, that's not the one. Uh-oh. I actually sent you guys an email today regarding the EQ10 because I realized that the EQ10 is very basic in instructions, right? So let's go ahead and take a look at the EQ10. This Challenger lift is not the one I was looking for. Sorry. Okay. There we are.
We would be looking at the catalog of this, not look at the website.
You do have access to this because I sent you an email today. So
Right.
if
Oh,
for whatever reason we can update this, I just received this today, which is the manual for them. I asked for,
gotcha.
so that's why I have it. I don't exactly know if it is or if it isn't. But for example, we can now look at, well, even Challenger has a pretty decent way of showing it on their manual as opposed to the differences. So this, in fact, is something that we can add to the website for the customer. But let's just say that that information wasn't there, just as it wouldn't be probably in the Tuxedo lift or if it wasn't in the Titan lift. So
Got it.
here we are with the rise height, okay? 72.14. Now, I'm going to need to read the description completely to understand, is this the bottom of the pad? Is this the top of the pad? Screw pad highest position. So it's telling me that 72.14 is the highest position that that pad will touch the frame of the vehicle. So if the customer tells me, oh, will I hit my head? Because I'm actually 69 inches, right? Well, you got to consider that, hey, this 72 is to the top of the pad. It's very likely that that's not the dimensions that is going to be from the floor to the bottom of the lift. You see what I mean? Because there's obviously a difference between the bottom of the arm to the top of the pad. Are we clear?
Yeah, I see that.
Okay, let's just take one more step. Screw pad height. Here it's telling me that the actual height of the pad is 4.25, which is telling me that in fact, this is actually going to be 4 inches less from the top of the pad to the bottom of the arm, because I was able to understand that the screw pad height is going to affect the rise height, right? So again, going back into the conversation
Right.
of this one, as long as, that's why bent pack is, that's why this is important for you to study, because the more you understand the way bent pack explains their lifts, you're able to look at something more simple and then be able to ask yourself again those questions. How am I measuring this? What am I reading? Let's continue on. The front arm reach, basically pretty self-explanatory how far these are. I've had very few questions about those. Screw pad adjustments, max load per arm, time per raise. That's information that isn't always necessarily too important. Always remember, guys, you guys have a 220 volt on the two post lifts. Very rarely, I think the only lift that I know that is a two post lift that is a 110 is called the max jack, and we don't have access to it yet. So until that happens, 220 volt on all two post lifts that I know of. If something changes, please let me know.
Ed,
Yes.
so we actually do, well, I don't know if you know, but Benpak bought Danmar.
Yes.
And we do have, they sent us the price sheet for Danmar, but it's not going to be available until the next 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
So just in case anybody asks, we do represent Danmar now. We just don't have it up on the website.
Yes. Yes. As of now, I guess we still don't have access, but that's why I did mention the Max Jack. When you guys get a chance, feel free to go to YouTube, take a look at what the Max Jack is. I think it's going to be a very popular seller for home garages. Okay. Something that is kind of like your scissor lift, 110 volt, it's portable. It's a two post, and you're kind of able to move it around. So it's a big advantage. Okay. So again, recommendations, look this over. Try to understand the difference between these different letters, where they stand, and the better that you understand this, again, go back to these and then you're able to kind of understand what it is that they're trying to say. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at an HD9 version. Now we're going to do the same thing. but now we're going to do it with a 4-post lift, right? Here again, we have the dimensions. G, which is the overall height, which for the HD9XL is 88. For the HD9XW, it's 100. So there's actually quite a bit of difference there. What is the height? The height of the columns, G? G, the height of the columns is how high they're going to stand. So that usually doesn't have any effect, but make sure you don't confuse G with what actually C is, because C is the maxed lifting height. Now let's look very closely at C, A, and B, right? A is going to be how high from the floor to the position where the wheels are actually going to sit on the frame of the lift, which in this case is 4.5 inches, right? Then we have B. Now, from what it's showing, the line basically goes from the floor to the bottom of the posts. So B in actuality is 70 inches for the XL, 70 for the HST, et cetera, right? But that is not where the wheels are going to sit. So if you measure, let's say the customer says, oh, my vehicle is 50 inches. Okay, sir. Well, you have 50 inches. And your ceiling is maybe 110 inches. So that in actuality means that you really only have 60 inches to play with, right? So we got to be careful and kind of do the math in our heads and make sure that we're taking it from the right number to show that the max rise here is B. So that's how far the vehicle is going to be able to fit underneath, as opposed to C, which is the max lifting height, which is from the floor to the top of the runways where the vehicle is going to sit. So taking the same example, if I have the vehicle that is 50 inches, am I going to add the 50 inches plus the 70 or the 74.5? In very tight quarters, it's going to make a huge difference. Okay. In this case, it's only 4.5 inches. I think with other companies, they're up to even 6. So you have 6 inches of difference between the bottom where the vehicle will fit to the top where the vehicle will sit. Okay. That part, any questions?
Oh,
Okay. A lot of people are sometimes, well, a lot of people call in regards to the rolling jacks. As you can see here, this is a rolling jack that sits in between the rails, which in this case is going to be L, right? So L, width between the runways. Sometimes people call and say, hey, I'm looking for a rolling jack. It's this wide between them. Usually what I do is I ask them what kind of lift they have and reference it to them. But some of our tuxedo lifts, some of our tuxedo rolling jacks are adjustable. So you're able to figure out what is the width, L, so that a rolling jack or a tray can fit in between them, right? Then we have to make sure that difference between D, which is the width overall from corner to corner, as opposed to H, which is basically the width between the columns, right? The width between the columns, not to be confused with the drive-through clearance, which is I. So I is basically how wide the wheelbase have to be. Again, kind of like the same thing that we went over in this one, where H is for basically the chassis, and then I is going to be for the wheelbase. Similar situation here. I, in this case, is how wide the wheelbase is, and H is basically for the chassis to see that the car itself, the body of the car, can fit onto the lift. Is that more or less clear?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Everybody, we're good? Okay.
Yes.
This is something that I, as far as I know, only Benpack does. Okay. This is a minimum wheelbase and capacity. So what does that mean? That means that these ramps can be adjusted. So if you have a car with a wide wheelbase, you are able to put them into wide capacity. And then if you have a vehicle that has a shorter wheelbase, you can put them into a shorter capacity. What Benpack is saying is that the wider the capacity, you're going to get full weight capacity on this. So let's say, for example, this at this configuration, you're going to get the full 9,000 pounds. If you do it at this configuration, you're only going to get 75% of 9,000 pounds, which I think is going to be like 8,000 something, right? If you do it at this configuration, you're only going to get 50% of that. And then if you get 25% because you went through this configuration. You see what I mean? Benpack, as far as I know, is the only one that does that. There are going to be customers who ask you, and especially with Tuxedo and Titan, I can guarantee you that they do not adjust. Okay, so these ramps, wherever they sit, that's where they are. That's where they will be. Okay.
Alrighty.
Okay.
All right. My throat's tired. I think I pretty much covered everything. Symmetric, V-symmetric, asymmetric. We did the ALI certification, different types of pulling systems, dual point release, and we went over some of the measurements in order to better understand the different dimensions that are offered on the page. How we doing? Anybody? Final questions?
Um, can we talk a little bit about the air compressors that these need, the four posts or garages, to what's the most preferable way to talk to them, to the client, for an air compressor for this?
Sure, not a problem. So, guys, whenever you're selling a four-post lift and they ask you for a Benpack lift, one of the things that you should tell the customer is that, hey, customer, this, and it's going to be right here. I mean, typically I don't make this a very long conversation. And I'm just like, hey, customer, you are going to need air in order to unlock the safety mechanism. So going back into what we were talking about here with the single point release system, right? The four post lifts are going to have very similar systems about the safety mechanisms. So as they go up, they are going to have locks that click into place every 4 inches or so, right? Same thing happens here with this lift. As it goes up, every section, it clicks in, right? Now, there's two ways of doing it. There's a mechanical, which is basically manual, like you actually have to go over there and use your hand to do it, or air. Now, Benpack, again, is the only one that actually does it with air. So they require a minimum air supply of 30 psi, right? Does that mean that they have to buy themselves an 80-gallon compressor? No. No, they can buy themselves a small pancake compressor in Walmart, because almost all compressors offer at least a 90 psi rating. So you don't have to have a ridiculous amount of air. But maybe the customer says, I don't want that. Okay, don't buy Benpack. I can offer you the Challenger. The Challenger is mechanical. You see, other times they're like, oh, I like that. Yeah, I have a compressor, so, and make sure that if you're doing an installation, you let the installer know, hey, it's a bent pack lift, so you're going to kind of be hooking up the air supply, right? Which is an extra step for the installation. So he might charge you an extra $20. I don't know. But for the most part, you are informing the customer that, in fact, you do need an air supply for the bent pack lifts. And I think just to show you a picture, I'm pretty sure that bent pack actually has some pictures that are kind of, let's see here. If they show, I know I've seen it before. I just can't remember now where it is that I saw it. Just to kind of finish it off. Maybe this one will show it. Sorry, guys, I don't have a picture for you at this point. I ask you to just keep an eye out for it whenever you see in a bent pack picture. I think I might have seen it on a video. Now, just to keep in mind, this is only for 4-post lifts. This is not true for 2-post lifts, okay? You only need air for a 4-post lift, so no need to worry about that, okay?
And that is just for bent back, just Titan and challenge and the other ones that don't need air.
No, not the only one. The only company that I know that requires air for the safety mechanisms are the bent pack lifts. Those are the only ones that I know.
Yep. You.
Okay. Anything else?
No, sir.
No.
Good on my end.
Good on my end.
Appreciate all the rundowns there, Ed.
Awesome. Well, like I said, I just want everybody to kind of be on the same page. There's obviously going to be a lot more information as we go along. So definitely just keep in mind the lower end. Just to recap one more time on this one, the lower end are going to be the JMC, Tuxedo, Ideal, Titan, and Amgo. Once you go into the higher end ones, you're going to see lifts like Bent Pack, Challenger, and Newsbomb. And also, just one other quick thing before I let you guys go. I know I'm talking too much, but one of the features that Newsbomb has is actually a feature that no other company has. So it's a very strong selling point. And what they have is that they have what is called a double jointed arm. So to kind of give you an idea, the middle of the arm has if you could see it there, you can see that the arm swings at a kind of like a 90-degree angle almost completely. No other company has that. Okay. Not only that their power units are rated some of the best power units in the industry. It's more likely for you to die in an airplane accident that one of these Newsbomb power units go bad.
What an example.
I just thought I'd finish it off on a happy note.
I don't think that's happy note.
Hey, George, don't judge me, okay? I'm doing my best.
It's better.
Disaster. No.
You will die first until this gets
You're
damaged.
gonna die first before. Okay, so now that I feel like that, have a great day, guys. Whenever you get the chance, go to the Newsbomb website, take a look at their equipment. Very expensive, but at the same time, some of the best quality lifts in the industry. Opinion is that they don't have the best customer service, but what are you gonna do?
Nussbaum is American, right?
It's
American.
no, it's German engineering.
Oh, that's right, German.
German engineering, but they do have a lot of American production. So it's considered American. Okay, guys. So now that we went over just about everything that I possibly could remember in the last hour and 10 minutes, have a wonderful day.
Thank
And
you.
thank you so much for the attention.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
Thank you so
very
much, Edwin.
much.
Awesome. Bye, guys.
Take care.
Bye-bye.